Hi, guys. In just a second, I'm going to be introducing a new author. Her name is Angie Dicken, and I can't wait to talk about her newest book. She has two books out right now that came out in the end of 2017, but today we're going to be talking about Castle Gate, Utah, and it's historical fiction, and you know I love historical fiction, but more than anything, I love talking to new authors. They're just always so excited about their book, and they love doing interviews, and I love interviewing them. So, anyway, I can't wait to start this interview. So, here is Angie. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be talking with author Angie Dicken, and she has both of her books because they came out right after each other at the end of last year. We're going to be talking about Castle Gate, Utah. That's the one I read, and then the other one that came out in September, right there, The Outlaw's Second Chance. And I love this book, Angie.
Oh, thank you.
I loved it, and I just want to know if I'm the only person that ever wants to say Dickens as your last name.
No, I get that ever since I got married in 2000. Everyone always calls me
Angie Dickens.
S on the end. So yeah, but it's actually pretty cool because Charles Dickens is one of my heroes.
Right, and you got Angie Dickens, the actress, which you're kind of young.
Yep. Oh, I get that a lot.
Yeah, because when I Googled your name, and then I was like, oh, that's right, it's without the S, because her face pops up, and I'm like, oh, not her. And I was like, oh, she probably gets it all the time. But yeah, as a writer, to have the last name Dickens, I mean, that's pretty cool. And you know what? As a reader, my street name is Hemingway. And I love that.
Oh, that's so cool.
It made me love the place more. So that's how we are as weird writer people.
My any of my follower counts on Twitter or Facebook, I always think of a year in history.
Yes.
Whatever number it is. I'm like, oh, that year.
Exactly. I do weird things like that too. But anyway, what I love, first of all, I always love a good ending. Okay. I am a happy ending person. And so some people are like, oh, that's so boring. And I'm like, no, because it's how you get to the happy ending. You know, it's the ride you go on to get there. So I get upset if it's not a happy ending. I really do.
What did we learn?
Yeah, what did we learn? This is all just. Do you remember that Jennifer Aniston movie? The Breakup.
I don't know if I've seen that, but I know who you're talking. I know the
Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston. Okay, so they broke up, and then they didn't get back together. I walked out of the movie theater, and I was like, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. They did not get back together.
Well, that's probably why I haven't seen it, because I figured it wouldn't end well.
Yeah, and everybody else was like, no, it was artistic, and it's and I'm like, no, they need to get back together, or it's. Right. I wish I would have known that going in. But anyway, that's how I always talk to my romance authors, because I'm like, I want a happy ending, and if I get a happy ending, I am a very happy person. And right. So as an author, I mean, you love the happy endings too.
I do. And, one time I did write a book with a sad ending, but it was still a conclusive ending. And I gave it to a freelance editor to do the content edits. And he was like, okay, no, she needs something uplifting has to happen at the end to spur the reader on to the next book. And so that's always gone in my mind. I'm like, it's a book, it's fiction. Why not make it exciting and happy at the end, and tie up some strings or some loose ends of the book with a happy conclusion? I mean, don't we all need that?
I know. It's if we want real life, we can just go on Yahoo, right?
Right.
I mean, exactly. So it's I don't need real life in my books. I need a getaway, Right. I need something that I want to open up and read, at the end of the day, because that's when I read all the time, but as a reader, when I used to just read, the end of the day, you open it up, you want to just yes, just kind of go into this story. But I wanted to ask you, okay, this is a series of books called My Heart Belongs In, and then the Place. So how did you get involved in that? Because there's all kinds of different authors I saw, and I always wondered how authors got involved in that.
Yeah, well, my agent is the one that she keeps her ear open for things that publishers want, and this opportunity came up. The publisher wanted books set in different places around the country, historical settings, and I had actually written this book in 2011 and 12, and it got submitted to different publishers, and just it wasn't nobody was ready for that kind of book. And then this opportunity came up. I think it was 2 springs ago, and I was like, I'm going to just submit this and
Hmm.
see. And at first, it actually was called The Coal Miner's Widow, was what I had
Mm.
written it to be. And then when it was a geographical location, I was like, well, it would be obviously Castlegate, Utah, and I love that name anyway. But
Right.
yeah, so she submitted it, and a bunch of the authors that are in it I've been friends with through writing conferences and
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
So yeah, it's been awesome because it's fun to connect with other authors
Right.
in this kind of way. I've connected with them like just attending a conference and taking workshops with them, but then to also support each other as our books come out in a series. That's been really fun.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
seems like a really cool concept, and I've seen it in different type of. I mean, this is the first one I've seen that it's set in a place, but I've seen
right.
different kind of things like that, and I always wondered. I'm like, how do they get involved in something like that? Because it has to be that somebody thinks it's good, and and you have to submit it or something like that, or unless it's your your agent that puts it
Yeah.
together.
Well, I've seen it throughout the industry done several different ways. Like a group of authors that are already knowing each other, they could get a proposal together for something like a series and propose it to a editor at a publishing house, or a publisher can come up with the idea, which is what this was, and then propose it out to agents who then ask their authors and they submit, and then the publisher decides who's going to do it. So there's all sorts of avenues.
Right.
Pop off my hands.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Well, I was gonna look up because this is historical fiction. It's romance, but it's also historical fiction. And this city, it takes place in a mining town back
Yes.
in the early 1900s. And I wondered because I read the back of your book, and you said that it kind of it's where your ancestors like were you. It was it just that you are part Greek, or was it that your ancestors actually like lived there?
Um, I'm I'm actually 100% Greek. Both of my
You're
parents are
100%.
Greek. Yeah, my parents met at Greek church in high school, and my grandfather's father, he was a coal miner that came over from Greece, just like in the book,
Yeah.
and worked in Helper, Utah, which is near Castlegate. And my grandfather was born in a coal mining town, the same coal mining town, in a tent, because they
Wow.
didn't have that's what made me want to explore this history. Um,
Right.
so yeah, because my I was always told, oh, he was born in a tent on the side of a Utah mountain.
And you're like, what?
So yeah, I know. So all of the circumstances and stuff in the book, like the specific plots, and nothing really comes from my family's background, but it all is in the setting of where my grandfather was born.
That is so
So
cool. I live in an area, I'm in Pennsylvania, okay?
okay. Oh,
And I
there's
live in a
my.
very Greek part of Pennsylvania.
Oh,
And all the diners in the area are all owned by Greek families. But
yeah.
the biggest thing in town is like twice a year, the Greek churches put on their Greek food festivals.
Oh, yeah.
And
Those are
it's like,
delicious.
I get so excited.
I know.
Because I'm Pennsylvania Dutch and Greek is so far from that.
Right.
But I have learned, okay? Like every time I go, I try something different and I'm like, oh my God, everything is just so delicious. I mean, their pastry, I just, it's a bad weekend for me because I just go there and I just eat all the time. It's like, but we get all excited about it. I mean,
Oh,
for us in this like here, like I said, in this area, it's just an interesting little because everybody's Pennsylvania Dutch, and then we have this little like cluster of because there's a Greek Orthodox church here, and then and the diners always serve Greek food. You can get anything there, so
man.
the
Awesome.
cooking is just I love the culture and the families. You know, when you
Yeah.
go there, they're just like the huge families, and
Mhm.
it's such a different culture than what my family is.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love the food.
And
And
okay, remember the movie that My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
oh
Okay,
yeah.
well that was like my daughters and I watched that like every month, like for when they were teenagers, because I mean, she did a great job with it, but we could also relate because we knew so many Greek families.
Sure, sure. I know, it's hilarious. There's
It
some
is.
parts I'm like, "Yep, that's true. Yep, that's true."
Plus, I have a
Oh.
son named Ian, and Ian's like a big character in that book. I mean, in
Oh,
that movie.
right. I
Because
love that name.
and they don't know how to say it. They're like, Ian.
Yep, yep. Oh,
But
goodness.
anyway, that is so cool because I was gonna look it up because what I was thinking is when they started moving west like that. I mean, it's so unusual to get like a Greek culture and then they're gonna go to Utah, like because
Right.
they're exploring, especially early 1900s. I mean, it's like, how did they? Do you know how your family found that area? Like, was it that they knew somebody there, or like, how did that happen?
I wish that I had talked more to my grandparents when they were
Yeah,
alive about how that all they settled there.
yeah,
And I actually have a lot of distant relatives that live in Salt Lake City, so I'm sure that they have stories that they can tell. But from what my research shows, is that labor agents that were Greek went over to Greece and gathered up men because Greece was in a depression and they needed jobs, and so they would say, "Come work, and you can send money back to your families." And so that's how they came over. So I think my great grandfather came over right at the turn of the century, and I'm not sure exactly
yeah.
what brought him here, but I'm assuming it was something like that.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah.
always interests me because my family's from England and some of
Oh,
it's from Germany,
love
but I
those
love like
things.
looking into that, like how did they get here? But I'm on the East Coast, so it makes kind of a little bit of sense. But once families started going to the West, and it wasn't easy to get there. It was like a
Right.
really hard trip, and to go to mine, which is they was so unsafe and so like that's what I kept thinking too. Is like they must have needed the money because it wasn't they weren't paying them that much. And
Right.
but for them it was like a lot, you know.
Right. It was
So
something. Right.
it was
And,
something.
America, I think at that time period always had this glorified, like people would say, "Oh, America, it's
Right.
streets of gold." And so it was appealing to people who were living in depravity to want to come over. Actually, my mom's mom, she came over after Hitler's army burnt down her village in
Wow.
1940s. And so she came over later than my dad's side of the family. And so, yeah, it's just America has always been a safe haven for people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's good. I was gonna look it up, and I'm like, what? I'm just gonna ask her.
yeah,
Why?
absolutely.
So okay, so these characters are crazy good, and like we said, there's like this message, and I love the message. I love reading books that have a message because I just do. I can't explain why, but I just do. And I loved her. I loved Leanna, and I loved her struggle in trying to figure out like her life and what she was going to do. And I related to it a lot because I think that we all go through. I mean, I didn't have the same situation as her, but of course, we all go through this time period when we're like, what are we going to do? What
Right.
what is the right way to go, and is there a right way, staying
Yeah.
going, like what am I supposed to do? And I thought you did such a good job like bringing her character to life that I could relate to.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I love quotes, so I picked out a quote that
Oh, thank you.
because okay, just for everybody, I mean, I don't want to tell anybody what, so I kind of skirt around things because I want everybody to experience it like I did. And so, she has this relationship with Alex. Well, they kind of, go back and forth, and he's Greek and she's not. So, there's this big different culture thing, which really mattered back then.
Right.
Like
Oh, yeah.
we today think like, what did that matter? Who cares?
Right.
You know?
I know. And it was really, I was shocked when I started researching at the stuff that the Greeks went through at that time
I
period.
know.
It was crazy. They were threatened to be lynched and mobbed or lynched and Yeah, I'm not sure what the word is, but
I know what you're saying. But I thought, okay, what I was shocked by as I'm reading this is like, I thought they were one of the few cultures because in my community, like the Greeks are so like loved that I was
right.
like, who didn't love the like? I don't know. It's just bizarre to me because I'm like, you can see other cultures, but like the Greeks, they just make good food and they're like they're very sweet people. Like I can't believe that there was bias back then against a culture like that. You know,
Right.
just
Right.
because of I don't even know why. Just because they were different and they had
We're
different.
taking American jobs, I guess, was one of the things that I found.
Okay, yeah, I can.
And a lot of them were going back and living and just take working a while and going back instead of establishing themselves
Right.
in America. I think by the time my grandfather was born, they had started establishing themselves more because he was born after World War I, and so they started staying, and that's when I think things slowly got better. My grandmother, I remember her telling us about being made fun of in school because she was Greek and stuff like that. But I didn't hear any like terrible stories from them about fitting in and stuff. So
Right.
it's that time period.
Yeah, I guess, and it's hard for us to relate like back 100 years of what they were going through. But yeah, I mean, our country was in kind of, getting towards the depression and, so
Yeah.
jobs were probably, people were like really touchy about jobs and, so
Yeah.
anyway, let me tell you the quote.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
because, okay, so Alex goes through, kind of a with God, he kind of has a struggle. He goes through this struggle with his relationship with God, and the Greeks are really, I mean, they're very strict. They have strict traditions, and so it's kind of like, wow, everybody's like, why? They just do it. They don't think about it. But he's like, he's struggling, and then the quote was, he prayed to someone he'd never wanted to speak to again. And
Yes.
I was like, ah, it's just, it was just when I'm a good quote person. And, when I stop, when it makes me like go, oh,
I
because I think
know.
we've all been there. He's not unusual. He's a, like we've all been to that place where we're like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm making God angry, if I'm, I think everybody comes to that at a certain age where you have to kind of
Absolutely.
figure out like what you're going to
Mhm.
do. And I just
And
thought that was so beautiful. You just captured that
oh,
so awesome.
well, thank you. It because I wrote it at first in 2011, and then I've rewritten it a couple times. His spiritual journey has kind of shifted and changed.
Yeah.
When I first wrote it, I didn't have him really connected to God until he came to that point with Leanna where he saw her faith. But then I couldn't deny the fact that Greek Orthodox can be very spiritual, and
Right.
my family is very grounded in their church and their traditions and their beliefs, and so yeah, so I loved working on his character, and he just kept changing on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, he
But
did. But it was a good journey, just like her journey. I loved his journey.
yeah,
She had the same struggle. It wasn't like she had the perfect,
right,
thing. She had the same struggles with what she was going through. And
yeah,
that's why I love these kind of books because they do make you like think like, oh, okay, I'm not, like you can relate. You're like, I'm not the only one. Everybody goes through this. And I have 6 children
oh
and
wow,
they're huge age range, and even just watching them go through their relationships with God, like
yeah,
because it's so different now from my 30-year-old son to my 14-year-old son. The world is changing so much. It was so much easier, I want to say, when they were little, when the older ones were little. We just got
oh
dressed and went to church every day. Like that was what we did. And then the churches around here started breaking up and moving, and like it's just so much changes in a even that period. And then of course what's going on everywhere.
right. I know.
you know?
Yeah,
So
it's and same. I have 4 children, and yeah, and I think each of them are so different and how they respond to talk about God and stuff. Like when I know one of them is so faithful, and our conversations are so different than than with my other son, because he's just more of an intellectual
Right.
thinker, and so and I love it. I love being able to have those differences in conversations.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, me
yeah, and
too.
it's grown my faith a lot to have the different personalities in our family and how we relate to each other. And then also it helps when you start developing characters and stuff. And yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
it's
So
it's awesome.
these books came out very close together, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's because of the publishing world and, that's just how it's not like, oh, I'm going to write a book in 3 months and put it out. I'm sure that.
Right. Well, so one of them, so I had, like I said, I wrote Castlegate, and then I submitted that in the spring. I can't even remember if I think it's 2016, in the spring. And then a contest came up for Love Inspired Historical, where you put in a pitch for a book, and I had already had one half written, and so I was like, oh, I'll do it. And then if you get picked, then you write 3 chapters and a summary, and then if that gets picked, you write a whole manuscript. It was called the Manuscript Matchmakers Contest. And so I was doing all that while Castlegate was on submission. And then I
Wow.
won that in August. And then in October is when Barber decided they wanted Castlegate. So it just like kind of worked out. But I was a little nervous because I was going to be editing 2 different books at the same
Right.
time. But it was like definitely a God thing, because my deadlines were so staggered that I was able to focus on each book as I was working toward a deadline. So it was really good.
Oh, that's awesome. So what's coming up for you now?
Well, I have something in the works. I actually talked to my agent today, and so I can't really say anything yet, but I'm really excited to share that. And I try and share all my announcements and stuff on my newsletter, which is on my website.
Yeah,
And
and I will
then
be
I'm
linking that underneath here for everybody. Yeah, I'll be
oh,
linking your
great.
website so they can go to your website. I went on there. I mean, it's a really good. I love going on the website. So
Oh,
it's
thanks.
very because you can
Yeah.
see what's coming up and like you said, subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, and I only send that out about every quarter, or if I have some major news, which I
Yeah.
hope to have soon. And then I'm writing a story. I'm always have a story in the works, and then I have a couple that are out on submission. So yeah, I think the sky's the limit. We'll see.
Yeah, and then the more that you win these contests and get these out there, I mean, it'll be easier because then your publicist will, you'll be on a schedule and, it only gets easier from here.
Yeah, it does. And it's also a learning experience. I know when I go to these conferences, I see multi published authors sitting in a workshop learning. And so I know that it's always going to be a learning process. And
Always.
that's fine with me. I love having a place to go instead of just sitting still. So
Yeah. Let's show everybody the covers again because I love the
oh,
covers. And I mean, Castlegate cover is so cool. I
oh,
love that cover.
thank you.
It just
I,
embodies her.
and I don't know if you remember in the part of the book where she has a white hat.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that got added once I saw the cover. I was
Oh,
like,
you're
white hat in the book.
yes, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
just the way I don't know, I love it. I love the profile, and I love that it's muted colors and, I just love covers. So anyway, and then that I did not read The Outlaws, but I mean, that one's out there. I'm going to have your Amazon link for everybody that they can go right to both books, to your Amazon author page. And I can't wait to hear. Please keep me updated on what's coming out. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I love talking to new authors because like you never know. Like it could be the next book, and it's like, ah! And I go in Barnes and Noble and take pictures of books and send them to authors, and I'm like,
Fun.
here, look what this is, because I just think it's so much fun, and and the fact that you have 4 children and you're writing, and I mean, I know how crazy that life is, so I am, you're an inspiration to all the moms out there, and to have your own thing going and raising kids. I mean, it's very difficult.
Well, thank you. It's been a creative outlet.
Yes.
I've been writing for about 10 years. So when my babies were babies, I was like, I need to write.
I need to do something.
I need to write.
Yeah. See, and I would just go read. So that's why.
Yep. I try and do both.
Yeah, I know. Well, Thank you so much, Angie. I will have all of Angie's links listed under here, and please let me know whatever's coming up, and we can always chat again.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Sure. Well, have a great day.
You too.
Okay,
Bye bye.
bye-bye. Thank you for watching my interview with Angie, and I knew she was going to be so sweet. I can just tell by her writing, okay? She was really adorable, and thank you so much for watching. I will have all of Angie's links listed under here, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please hit like, and if you'd like notice of all my videos, please hit subscribe.